We were conducted to Kiao. We were there informed of the prodigies performed by that handful of brave men who had not despaired of the safety of their country. They had triumphed at Montmirail, at Cézanne, at Champaubert, in every part where the enemy had dared to await them. All Europe fled before them. The coalition was dissolved. The obstinacy of a soldier snatched from us the fruits of victory. It became necessary to fight and conquer again, but ammunition failed us. The corps did not arrive. The generals were haranguing the troops to make them capitulate. Everything was lost. Our glory, our conquests vanished as a shadow. Even the signs of them were repudiated. The end of the coalition was attained. Our captivity was no longer profitable. We were set at liberty. We returned to France. What a spectacle did she present! The body of emigrants had invaded the army and the antechambers. They were bending under the ensigns of command and decorations. The first person that I met at the Tuileries was a chief of a battalion, whom I had formerly assisted and protected. He was become lieutenant general. He did not recognize me. Another, who was with me a long time at Danzig, had not a better memory. This last person I had received at the recommendation of the Duc de Cador. I had experienced his sickening adulations. He used to style me Monseigneur, Your Excellency. He would willingly have called me the Eternal. In proportion as I told him how much these fooleries displeased me, he increased them. He even conceived the idea of attending at my levee. If it had depended on him, I must have conceived myself a sovereign. His malversations delivered me from this obstinate flatterer. They became so glaring that the government was on the point of proceeding against him. I saved this gentleman from the shame of punishment, but I made him retire. He went to exercise his industry elsewhere. He soon became acquainted with our reverses, was alarmed, took post, and never stopped till he was on this side of the Rhine. His fear had served him better than courage could have done. He had large epaulettes and 4 or 5 decorations. This was well for the opening of his career. Promotion does not go on so quickly on the field of battle. He withdrew as soon as he saw me. Apparently, his costume embarrassed him. I met a third, who also did not feel quite at ease in my presence. Formerly attached to Josephine, he had given proof of a truly exquisite foresight. In order to be provided against all unforeseen cases which might occur in promenades and journeys, he had provided himself with a silver-gilt vessel. When a circumstance required it, he drew it from his pocket, presented it, took it, emptied it, wiped it, and put it away with care. This showed the very instinct of domesticity. But all these worthies, so ardent for the treasury, for decorations and commands, soon showed the amount of their courage. Napoleon appeared, they were eclipsed. They had flocked to Louis XVIII, the dispenser of favors, but they had not a trigger to pull for Louis XVIII in misfortune. We tried a few dispositions, but the people, the soldiers, had never been accomplices of the humiliations of France. They refused to fight against the colors that they adored, and the emperor peaceably resumed the reins of government. Generals Bertrand and Le Marois wrote to me to come to the Tuileries. I returned to Paris. A new invitation was waiting for me at my hotel. The Grand Marshal informed me that His Majesty wished to see me. I did not like to keep him waiting. I went just as I was, quite sure that Napoleon would know how to appreciate duty and affection. I was introduced immediately. Napoleon. You are there, Monsieur General Rapp. You have been much wanted. Whence do you come? Rapp. From Ecouen, where I have left my troops at the disposal of the Minister of War. Napoleon. Did you really intend to fight against me? Rapp. Yes, sire. Napoleon. The devil. Rapp. The determination was compulsory. Napoleon, in an animated tone. F. I was very well aware that you were before me. If an engagement had taken place, I would have sought you out on the field of battle. I would have shown you the head of Medusa. Would you have dared to fire at me? Rapp: Undoubtedly, my duty. Napoleon: This is going too far. But the soldiers would not have obeyed you. They have preserved more affection for me. Besides, if you had fired a single shot, your peasants of Alsace would have stoned you. Rapp: You will agree, sire, that the situation was a very painful one. You abdicate, you leave us, you engage us to serve the king, you return. All the power of old recollections cannot deceive us. Napoleon: How is that? What do you mean to say? Do you think that I have returned without alliance, without an agreement? Moreover, my system is changed. No more war, no more conquests. I wish to reign in peace and promote the welfare of my subjects. Rapp: You are pleased to say so, but your antechambers are already full of those flatterers who have always encouraged your inclination for arms. Napoleon: Bah! Bah! Did you often go to the Tuileries? Rapp: Sometimes, sire. Napoleon: How did those folks behave to you? Rapp: I have no reason to complain of them. Napoleon: The king appears to have received you well on your return from Russia? Rapp: Quite so, sire. Napoleon: Without doubt. Cajoled first, then sent about your business. This is what would have befallen you all, for, after all, you were not their men. You could not suit them. Other titles, other rights were necessary to please them. Rapp: The king delivered France from the Allies. Napoleon: Very true, but at what price? And his engagements, has he kept them? Why did he not hang Ferrand for his speech on the national domains? It is that. It is the insolence of the nobles and priests which made me leave the island of Elba. I might have come with 3 million peasants who ran to me to tell their grievances and offer their services. But I was certain of not finding resistance in my way to Paris. The Bourbons are very fortunate that I have returned. Without me, they would at last have had a dreadful revolution. Have you read Chateaubriand's pamphlet, which does not even allow me courage on the field of battle? Have you not sometimes seen me stand fire? Am I a coward? Rapp: I have felt, in common with all honorable men, indignation at an accusation as unjust as it is mean. Napoleon: Did you sometimes see the Duc d'Orléans? Rapp: I only saw him once. Napoleon: He is the only one who has discretion and tact. The others have bad men about them and are very ill-advised. They do not like me. They will now be more furious than ever. There is good reason for it. I arrived without striking a blow. They are now about to cry me down as ambitious. That is their eternal reproach. They have nothing else to say. Rapp: They are not the only persons who accuse you of ambition. Napoleon: How? Am I ambitious? When people are ambitious, are they as fat as I am? He struck his stomach with both hands. Rapp: Your Majesty jokes. Napoleon: No, I have wished that France should be what she ought to be, but I have never been ambitious. Besides, what do these folks think of? It becomes them well to assume importance with the nation and the army. Is it their courage on which they pride themselves? Rapp: They have occasionally shown some, in the army of Condé, for instance. Napoleon: What is that order that I see on you? Rapp: The Legion of Honor. Napoleon: The devil! They have had, however, the sense to make a handsome decoration of it. And these 2 crosses here? He touched them. Rapp: St. Louis and the lily. He smiled. Napoleon: What do you think of that? Berthier, who did not like to remain. He will return. I forgive him all. On one condition, however, it is that he will wear his garde du corps uniform to appear before me. But enough of this. Well, General Rapp, we must serve France once more, and we shall rescue ourselves from the condition in which we are. Rapp: Confess, sire, since you have had the goodness sometimes to permit me to speak to you freely, confess that you were wrong in not making peace at Dresden? Everything was repaired if you had concluded it. Do you recollect my reports on the spirit of Germany? You treated them as pamphlets. You blamed me. Napoleon: I could not make peace at Dresden. The Allies were not sincere. Besides, if everyone had done his duty at the renewal of hostilities, I should again have been the master of the world. I had already gained to my side 32,000 Austrians. Rapp: It is only a moment since your Majesty had no ambition, and now we hear again of the sovereignty of the world. Napoleon: Ah, well, that's true. Besides, Marmont, the senators. My plan was arranged so as not to let a single ally escape. Rapp: All these misfortunes are the consequence of the reverses at Leipzig. You might have prevented them by accepting peace at Dresden. Napoleon: You are ignorant what such a peace would have been. And suddenly growing warm: Would you be afraid to go to war again? You, who have been my aide-de-camp for 15 years? On your return from Egypt, at the death of Desire, you were nothing but a soldier. I have made a man of you. Now you may pretend to anything. Rapp: I have never let slip any opportunity of showing my gratitude to you for it, and if I am yet alive, it is not my fault. Napoleon: I shall never forget your conduct in the retreat from Moscow. Ney and you are of that small number who have the soul thoroughly well-tempered. Besides, at your siege of Danzig, you did more than impossibilities. Napoleon fell on my neck and pressed me with vehemence against him for at least 2 minutes. He embraced me several times and said to me, pulling my mustachios, Come, come, a hero of Egypt and Austerlitz can never forsake me. You shall take the command of the army of the Rhine, while I treat with the Austrians and Russians. I hope that, in a month's time, you will receive my wife and son at Strasbourg. It is my pleasure that from this evening you perform the duty of my aide-de-camp. Write to Count Maison to come to embrace me. He is a brave man. I wish to see him. Napoleon related a part of this conversation to some persons about him. He told them that I had spoken to him with too great liberty, and that he had pulled my ears. Fortune smiled on him. The courtiers came round him in multitudes. It was enthusiasm, devotion. They boiled with zeal. These protestations had not, however, all the effect they had promised themselves. Many were rejected. One particularly, who persisted in obtruding his services, was repulsed with severity. Loaded with favors, gold, and dignities, he had overwhelmed his unfortunate benefactor with insults. He was treated with loathing and contempt. These gentlemen boast at present of an incorruptible fidelity. They find fault with the indulgence of the king in the saloons of the Faubourg Saint-Germain. They would like to see all those who were employed during the 100 days led to the scaffold. Chance has served them. Appearances are for them. Let it be so. But the generals, the ministers of Napoleon, the officers attached to his person, know full well what to think of these stoics of the antechamber. Sooner or later, the royal government will be enlightened. There is wherewithal to supply the place of the Red Book. Napoleon sent for me on the 29th of March, and informed me that I must set out for the army of the Rhine. He gave me the Grand Eagle of the Legion of Honor, which he had destined for me after the siege of Danzig. He told me that within 15 days my forces should be raised to 40,000 men. I had 15,000 at the commencement of hostilities. I observed to him that this was very little in comparison with those that we were going to have on our hands, that the Congress, its declaration was already known, threatened us with a deluge of soldiers. "The declaration you allude to is false," he replied angrily. "It was fabricated at Paris. However, go. Lescourbes will command in Franche-Comté, Suchet in the Alps, Clausel on the Garonne. We have great chance of success. Gérard goes to Metz. He has just tormented me to give him that Bourmont. I yielded to him with regret. I never liked that man's countenance. The propositions I have made to the sovereigns have been coldly received. Nevertheless, all hopes of arrangement are not destroyed. It is possible that the energy with which opinion is pronounced may incline them to sentiments of peace. I am going to make another attempt. This is the letter that I write to them. Sir, my brother, you will have learned, in the course of the last month, of my return to the coasts of France, my entry into Paris, and the departure of the family of the Bourbons. The true nature of these events must already be known to your Majesty. They are the work of an irresistible power, the work of the unanimous wish of a great nation which knows its duties and its rights. The dynasty, which force restored to the French people, was not made for them. The Bourbons have not consented to link themselves either to their opinions or their manners. France had a right to separate herself from them. Her voice called for a liberator. The hope which prompted me on to the greatest of sacrifices had been deceived. I came, and from the point at which I reached the shore, the love of my people has borne me even to the bosom of my capital. The first wish of my heart is to repay so much kindness by the maintenance of an honorable peace. The re-establishment of the imperial throne was necessary for the happiness of the French. My most earnest wish is to render it, at the same time, useful to the consolidation of the repose of Europe. Enough glory has shone by turns around the colors of different nations. The vicissitudes of fortune have often enough made great calamities follow great successes. A finer arena is open today to sovereigns, and I am the first to descend into it. After having presented to the world the spectacle of great combats, it will be more pleasant henceforth to know no other rivalry than that of the advantages of peace, and no other struggle than the holy contest over whose people shall be most happy. France hastens to proclaim with frankness this noble end of her wishes. Jealous of her own independence, the invariable principle of her policy will be the most unbounded respect for the independence of other nations. If, happily, such are, as I trust they are, the personal sentiments of your Majesty, a general calm is secured for a long time, and justice, seated on the confines of the different states, will suffice alone to guard their frontiers. I am with esteem, etc. But all overtures were useless. He was above human stature. He secured the supremacy of France. This was the grievance which nothing could counterbalance. I was convinced of it. His destruction was resolved on. I set out for Alsace. The hostile attitude of foreign courts had excited general indignation in that province. All generous minds, all who abhor a foreign yoke, were preparing themselves to repulse this league of kings who, under pretext of fighting with one man, only sought to enrich themselves with our spoils. The inhabitants, by concert and by a spontaneous movement, had rushed to the heights which command the defiles, to the roads or passages, and labored at the construction of entrenchments. Women and children put their hands to the work. They diverted and animated each other by singing patriotic songs. There was, between all the citizens, a rivalry in zeal and devotion. Some raised redoubts, others cast balls, mounted old muskets, and fitted the cartouches. In fine, every hand was in movement, everyone wished to labor in the common defense. An affecting scene, and worthy of ancient times, took place at Mulhausen when I arrived there. A ball was given. The most distinguished persons of the town were met. The assembly was brilliant and numerous. Towards the close of the evening, war and invasion of the territory were talked of. Everyone communicated his advice. Everyone told his hopes and his fears. The ladies were talking together and conversed on the dangers of their country. On a sudden, one of the youngest proposed to her companions that they should swear never to marry any Frenchman who had not defended the frontiers. Cries of joy and clapping of hands resounded from every part of the room. The looks of all present were directed towards the ladies. The rest of the company came up and crowded around them. I went with the throng. I applauded this generous proposal, and I had the honor of administering the oath, which every one of the fair patriots came to receive at my hands. This trait recalls the marriage of the Samnites, but it has something perhaps still more admirable in it. That which was an institution among the people in question was, with us, the effect of a spontaneous resolution. With them, patriotism was in the law. With us, it was in the hearts of our fair countrywomen. All this zeal, however, did not fill up my ranks. The time was passing away, and the recruits did not come in. The Allies formed themselves in corps on the left bank of the river. They could cross at any time. My situation had become very critical. I communicated to the Emperor the accounts of my number and situation. He could not conceal his surprise. So few men. Alsace, the patriotism of which is so ardent. No matter. Victory will soon raise battalions. There is nothing to despair of. War has its chances. We shall get through it. Napoleon had ordered me, 4 days before, not to leave a single soldier of the line in the fortified places, to take from the depots all who were in a condition to serve, to inundate and make good the lines of Weissenbourg, and to carefully keep up my communications with Bitch. I was engaged in these measures, but he found that I did not proceed with sufficient celerity. He wrote to me, Monsieur General Rapp, I have received your letter of the 12th of May. I see by the statement you have annexed that the 18th Regiment of the Line, of which your army has 2 battalions, 1,200 men strong, can furnish you with a 3rd battalion of 600 men. Order it to set off immediately from Strasbourg to join you. The 32nd can only supply a reinforcement of 200 men to your active battalions, which will raise them to 1,200 men. The 39th and 55th can furnish you their 3rd battalions. Order them to join you. The 58th can furnish you with 200 men to make its 2 battalions complete. The 103rd can complete its 2 first battalions to 1,200 men, the 104th the same. The 7th Light Regiment can furnish you with its 3rd battalion. In the same manner, the 10th Light Regiment. You can then, with a little activity, reinforce your infantry with 4,000 men. I am surprised that there has not been more voluntary enlistment in Alsace for these regiments. The 39th of the line is recruited in the Upper Rhine. That department ought at least to have furnished 2,000 veteran troops, which, divided between the 39th, 32nd, and 18th, ought to raise the 3rd, and even the 4th battalions, to their full numbers. The 10th Light, which is recruiting in Upper Saône, ought to receive many recruits. The 57th, which is recruiting in the Douze, ought also to receive a great number. The 7th Light, the 58th, and the 104th, which recruit in the Lower Rhine, ought to be complete. Inform me for what reason all the men that you have at your depots are not immediately clothed and do not fill up your ranks. Let me also know what men are announced for these regiments from the different departments. Do you expect that by the 1st of June, your 3rd battalions will be complete, and that each regiment will amount to 1,800 men, which will make 7,000 men for each of your divisions? Are you satisfied with the generals of division and of brigade under your command? What will be the condition of the 2nd Chasseurs, the 7th and 19th Dragoons, all of which have their depots in your division, by the 1st of June? These 3 regiments had at their depot 400 men and 300 horses. They must have received an increase since. By the 1st of June, With active measures, this division ought to have 1,500 horse. The 3rd Division has also all its depots in your arrondissement. It has 1,200 men at its depot. It ought, then, to furnish you with 2,000 horses. Paris, May 14th, 1815. Napoleon. I immediately replied to the questions which he had put to me. I explained to him the deplorable state into which the army had fallen. Arms, horses, clothing, everything had to be renewed. I could not have more than 22,000 men at my disposal by the 1st of June. The picture was not brilliant, but the Emperor made such admirable use of his resources that we were never justified in despairing. He put fresh funds at my disposal, he stimulated my zeal, begged me to neglect nothing to increase my forces, and to reconnoitre all the defiles. His dispatch deserves to be known. Count Rapp, I received your letter of the 18th of May. I have allotted 13 million francs for clothing in the distribution of May. Orders for considerable sums have been sent to each corps of your army. Be assured that they will be paid. I cannot reconcile to my mind that you will not be able to have at your disposal by the 1st of June more than 22,000 men, when the force at the depots is 4,000 men. Send for the 3rd Battalion of the 18th Regiment, the 3rd of the 39th, the 3rd of the 57th, the 3rd of the 7th Light, the 4th of the 10th Light, which will raise you 1 regiment of 4 battalions, 4 of 3 battalions, and 4 of 2 battalions, or 24 battalions in all. Hasten the clothing. Money is in the course of being transmitted to you, and will not be wanting. The enumeration of your cavalry, which you have sent me, is not correct. How is it that the 6th Cuirassiers has only its 3rd and 4th squadrons at the depot? What has become of its 5th squadron? The same observation for the 19th Dragoons. You have 1,787 men and only 427 horses, but you do not inform me how many men there are in detachment to take the horses of the gendarmes, how many there are to be remounted at the depot of Versailles, how many horses the regiment is to receive from the contracts it has made, or how many the departments are to furnish. If you are sufficiently active, you ought soon to have 1,500 or 1,600 of these 1,700 men mounted, which, joined to those now composing the squadrons, will increase your cavalry to near 4,000 men. You look at these matters too lightly. Remove the obstacles by your own exertions. See the depots and augment your army. Keep spies on the lookout to know what is passing on the other side of the Rhine, and principally at Mainz and Thionville, and make yourself acquainted with all the openings of the Vosges. Napoleon. Paris, May 20th, 1815. That concludes the 16th part of the story. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe for more episodes and leave a comment.